Good. Yourself?
I'm interested by what you have to say here. StartHavingKids.org.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do you think there's any good reasons to force someone to exist in this world?
I think there's a lot of good reasons for people to exist in the world, yeah.
What would those reasons be?
To further our people and to make things better for the next generation, on and on and on and on.
Is that what everybody does?
No, it's not what everybody does, but I think some people certainly do.
Okay, and what about the people who don't?
That's tough.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can live in fear of everything that could happen, right?
No, but what about all the bad things that can happen to someone once they're born and they come into the world?
Yeah, but you can't just live in fear of everything that could ever possibly happen to you, right?
Well, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not. I mean, some people do that. It's something that can happen to someone.
Right.
It's about having to me, like a valid, rational concern for someone, because there's so many different kinds of harms and suffering that someone can endure once they come into the world, plus things they can do to others.
Right,
so,
but there's a lot of good things people can do when they come into the world.
Yeah, but why put that risk onto someone else?
What do you mean?
You're putting when you force someone to exist in this world, you're placing risks on their life. You're imposing risks on their life.
You could say that, or you
by
could
virtue
say
of them being
you're
alive.
Bringing them to life. You're bringing them into the world, and they have opportunity to do anything they want to.
Right. But what's wrong with them not having that opportunity? There's
exist. It's zero.
Exactly. So they're not missing out.
The solution is complete zero.
Well, what about adoption? There's so many kids that are
great. I'm not saying everyone should have kids. I just said I'm interested in what you have to say.
Right. But if
great.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's living beings that already are here, humans and other animals alike, that, need love and care and resources, homes and everything like that, why don't we put them first before the unborn?
I'm not a parent. I don't know.
Well, you can still answer that whether you're a parent or not.
Sure. I was talking. What I've heard is there's something to the connection that you have with your own child, given the fact that you share half of your genome with them, right?
Right.
And there's something there's nothing wrong with adoption at all. I think it's a beautiful thing to do, but I think it is.
Is the connection not there if someone adopts?
I'm not saying the connection's not there. I'm not saying that. I mean, obviously, I have to speak generally in this conversation because I can't speak for every single person, every single child that's ever been in the world. But I think it is. I think it's a different situation. I think it's a different situation, and it doesn't make them less of your child or anything. But I think people gravitate towards having their own children because there is something beautiful to creating life, and there's something beautiful to giving birth to someone. And I think it's probably just you feel like you can lead someone that you know more about. You know where they come from if they come from you. It's probably easier to do than someone where you don't really know what they came from and who they came from and all the rest of it.
Right, but there's a need for the children who are already here, whereas there's not a need for the people who don't exist.
Absolutely, but I don't think that all procreation is unethical. I think that seems.
Well, let's look at it this way. What's an unselfish reason to have a child?
In hopes that child will do something positive for the next generation, and to further the advancement of humanity, and to make things more ethical and more even and more balanced.
But then you're speaking about them potentially being a benefit for others, and that's not for themselves.
Well,
you're not doing them. You're not doing them a favor.
I mean, them doesn't exist without you making them.
Right, exactly.
So really
but once you impose life onto them, you're not necessarily doing them a favor.
But once you bring life into their, I mean, you're creating a person.
Right.
And so
who then asks to be created? Who can't voice consent?
You can't ask to be created or not to be created.
Right. And don't you think it's a huge thing to potentially impose onto someone?
It's not someone. If it's
once they're there,
theoretical unborn nothing.
Well, exactly.
Exactly.
But once they exist, now life has been imposed onto them.
I think that's just your perspective.
And what about do you think life is beautiful for everyone?
Well, I think life can be beautiful for everyone. I think that people are put in different positions, and sometimes things are very uneven. Very deeply uneven from the starting point, and that's as no result of what the child has done, right? The child is born into life,
Right.
and sometimes you're born and you're addicted to heroin
Right.
from birth. That's not a good lot. I agree with you there. But I think that even that life can be a beautiful life. There are stories of people overcoming that and becoming, fathers to their own children, and that is beautiful.
Life could be really ugly too, right?
For sure.
So why, once I already asked you this before, but I just don't understand how we can justify gambling with someone else's life, imposing those risks onto them.
Because because otherwise we die. If all procreation is unethical and you say, okay, stop procreation, then the human race ceases to exist.
Well, what would be wrong with that if humans didn't exist?
What would be wrong with that? If you want to advocate for the eradication of any species, I think it's negative.
Well, isn't that what humans do every year? We eradicate other species?
I mean, I don't think that is the primary thing that humans do. I think that the only way is through. And I don't think that seizing human procreation is going to benefit the world. I don't think it will. I don't think.
Well,
I
think when we have children, we put them in harm's way because harm and suffering is inevitable, and then we also put other animals in the environment in harm's way because of our impact.
When you have children, you also can take that child to Disney World, and they can have a really good time, and it can be very beautiful. You can also take them to a mountain, and they can have a connection with someone. They can fall in love themselves.
Yeah, I understand that, but they're not missing out if they're not born. There's no deprivation.
They don't exist if they're not born.
Right.
So how can you say there's no deprivation?
It's
net zero. You're looking for zero.
So if it's about producing joy for living beings, why not put that to living beings who already exist, who are deprived?
I think birth is very joyful.
For who?
For a couple, for their parents.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
I just don't think it's as cut and dry as you can just. I mean, what's
Well, either way, this is not about getting all humans to cease procreation. Of course, it's meant for all humans to stop procreating. The message is the same for everyone, regardless of who you are, your situation. But there would never ever possibly be a day where everyone decides not to procreate. That's absolutely impossible. So this is about just reaching as many people as possible, which is, even best case scenario, is very few people in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
So this would never lead to extinction or eradication.
Yeah, I disagree. And that's okay too.
Yeah, I mean, most people disagree. Most people don't take harm prevention seriously. So.
Yeah.
Sure.
So what's your, in 5 years, what would be like positive outcome of your organization?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It's not something I'm committing my whole entire existence to.
Okay.
So.
Mostly just out here trying to get.
It's just being realistic. Just holding signs and having conversations is not going to do a whole lot. Even if a lot of people agreed, it still wouldn't make that much of a difference. But for everyone who is not born because of something like this, that's a great thing to me. And also it also validates a lot of people who are child free, who are stigmatized for being child free, and who are pressured by other people to have children. And so a lot of people feel seen and heard when they see signs like this.
That's fair, I guess.
Because there is a lot of cultural pressure to have children.
I can't agree with every person, every child that's not born because of this is a good thing. But that's how you feel? Every single child that's not born?
Definitely.
Oh, but what if that kid was like a dope rapper, bro? Like, what if he was fucking sick, dude?
Who cares? What if he's also a pedophile who rapes a bunch of children?
Do that.
I wouldn't want to risk birthing someone into this world who could be a pedophile, a rapist, a manipulator, a narcissist, a sociopath, a psychopath,
it's very,
an animal abuser.
It's like glass, like not even half empty. It's like way down here.
Well, why? I just think it's unethical to risk bringing someone into the world who could be any of those things and many more things.
I guess. I don't.
I mean, I just don't see how it's worth taking the chance, especially if you want to have children, and there's so many children already here screaming for a home. At least emotionally screaming for a home.
Yeah, no, I agree. Adoption is a very good thing.
That's what everyone says, and then they don't adopt. In fact, they'll spend tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, on IVF treatments and so forth to have their own child. It's literally a last resort to a no resort for most people who want children.
I agree.
And that's why there's so many children. That's why there's millions and millions of children in the world up for adoption right now.
I have a question. This might get a little testy. So, throughout most of human history, there's been a lot of... Hey, there he is. There's been a lot of like really significant colorism, right? Racism based on the color of your skin. It exists in all cultures, even where everyone's black, like the darker people are discriminated against. And several years ago, National Geographic had that piece where it was like, this is what the world's going to look like in 2500, whatever, right? And it was a very clearly racially ambiguous, very mixed color individual, right? So wouldn't you say that without procreation, that's not going to happen, right? So in order to create a more equal, equitable society, which it shouldn't be based on racism, it shouldn't be based on colorism. I'm not for that, but that is all of human history has been that way.
Well, that's another reason to not procreate. Why would you want to add to that?
To procreate, you could mix that and blur those lines and create a more equal society.
That's just an absurd justification to procreate. And I don't want to bring someone into the world where we judge others based off their skin or their species or where they're from or what language they speak or how they dress.
If all the people that feel like you, that don't want that, don't procreate, and all the people that feel the other way, who are very racist and malicious and trying to get one over on other people, if they all procreate, then how is that inequity going to be solved?
Well, that's not how it works. We're not just duplicates of our parents. We're all our own individuals. I'm absolutely.
I think where you come from.
I'm vastly different from my own parents.
For sure.
And many other people are as well.
Totally.
So. Yeah, and I don't want to bring someone into a world that has all these senseless scenarios going on.
So your solution is tap out. I'm done. My solution is more, hey, let me get in there.
I would have preferred to have not been born. And given that, I
wouldn't have met me and we would have this conversation.
Yeah, I wouldn't be like, once again, back to the deprivation, no deprivation. But yeah, I totally forget what I was going to say. Well, yeah, I mean, consent. Like, I just think, obviously, we can't get someone's consent to come into existence. That's how it always works. That's how it works for all species. But I just think it's way too huge of a thing to force onto someone.
It's a life. What do you think? What's your take?
I'm sorry?
What's your take?
Well, it's a very interesting dilemma.
Sure.
Because it has a lot of powerful points in it, but procreation isn't unethical because it's natural. It's part of the natural process of life.
Well, rape is natural. Does that mean it? Rape is natural. Does that mean it's ethical?
Rape is not natural.
Yeah, it is.
How's it natural?
Because humans have always been raping and other animals rape as well.
Raping is an act outside of the natural order of things.
A lot of humans have been born from rape.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that
just because something's natural doesn't mean it's ethical. I don't feel this right now, but say I had an urge right now to punch you, and it just came to me naturally. That doesn't mean it's ethical for me to punch you.
The word. You're putting the human definition of natural with the divine order of things. You're not God. God made every single thing in the world reproduces itself. So don't say it like as if you're God. You're not God, and you're not. I'm a Buddhist, so you're not dependent origination. You didn't come from the
Well, if God made something, doesn't mean it's ethical.
Pardon?
If God made something, doesn't mean it's ethical.
Your whole argument is absurd.
God can do evil things, right? Is God benevolent 24/7? Why does God let so many awful things happen if God is so ethical?
He's got other things doing. Is my take.
Oh, come on.
There's more to be done.
If God is all powerful and he's letting this horror show play out.
He's not getting emails about everything. That's how I feel about it.
Well,
he's flawed
God's
as well.
supposed to be all-knowing
Yeah, he's
and
all-knowing, but
all-powerful.
He's not perfect either. He's a flawed God, and people take issue with
So
it.
why would he create so much cruelty and let it all just play out?
I think, well, because the scale that we see on is very different than the divine scale, is kind of how I interpret it. And I'm relatively agnostic. I'm Jewish, but I'm relatively, I don't really know what's going on out there. But the way that I process it is that our entire lives are less than a blink in divine timing. I mean, it is just not even relevant. So on balance,
Right, but
God
while
does things that are
while
good.
we're living them, it doesn't feel like a blink to us.
Absolutely, but that's your consciousness.
There's so many-
and you're the only one that's in control of your own consciousness. No one
Right.
else is in control of your consciousness. And
Right.
you have to live through your own eyes, and that's kind of the end of that. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
I
I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but
I
it
know,
seems
for
like
sure.
our conversation has kind of run its course, wouldn't you say?
No, I think that everything, things are flawed. We're all flawed. We've all made big mistakes. In our lives. We've all behaved in ways that are not how we want to. But I think that to say, oh, because a part of this could be bad, we should cancel the whole thing, is very reductive, and it doesn't.
Not just bad, severe.
Well, it could be severe. Yeah, it could be
Brutal,
severe, for sure,
unbearable.
For sure. You
Violent.
Do you get in cars?
Do I get in cars? Yeah.
Okay, you could get in a car accident. You could die every time you
Yeah,
get in a
I
car.
know.
You shouldn't get in a
But
car.
that's a risk.
same
That's
logical
a
argument.
risk I decide to take on my own. That's not. I don't force someone. I don't force someone else to get into a car and drive. I just do that on my own will.
You do have a point there, where it is your choice to make that. But I think there's more good to be had. There's more growth to be had. In order to really manifest that growth, we need the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. And your argument here,
whatever growth you're talking about, I don't think we need.
Is also valid to animals, right? What about animal children?
Right.
So
but
should we stamp out? Should we have animals stop having children?
I mean, that would be lovely if I could converse with them and try to, persuade them to not have children either. But
Everything
this
procreates.
is something. Yeah, but
It is biological.
we can
Plants
actually
procreate.
ponder procreation. We can have these conversations and think through the possible consequences, the guaranteed consequences, and the possible consequences, and then we can take proactive steps to make sure that we don't have children, that we don't impose life onto someone. Other animals don't necessarily have the opportunity or the privilege to act that way.
You tried, you did it. I like it. I'm very proud of you. I am. I also feel the same way.
Well,
I'm like, well,
nice chatting with you. What's your name?
Dietz.
Dietz, Ben. Good
Cool.
to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Have a good one.
All right, you too.
be out and be cold, but the sun's not out.